She thought she'd done me a favor. She had no clue what she'd just done. My name is Frank. I'm 41 years old. I live in Hemet, California, and I run a small engine repair shop on the east end of town. It's not glamorous work, but it's mine. That Chevelle was mine too, or at least it used to be. I pulled into the driveway just past 6, sore from head to toe, still wearing grease-streaked jeans and smelling like carb cleaner. My hand was on the door handle when I noticed something off. The garage was wide open. That wasn't normal. I stepped out slowly and saw her, Linda, my mother-in-law, standing in the middle of my garage holding a fat stack of cash in one hand and a stupid little grin on her face, like she'd just won the lottery. "Hey, Frank," she called out like we were friends. "Great news, I sold that junk car for you. Got $3,200 cash." The words didn't register at first. I blinked, walked a little closer. The garage felt hollow, off. My tools were all shoved to one side, and right there in the center, the spot where my '71 CHEVELLE SS had sat for the past 5 years, was empty. Just an oil stain, a faint smell of gasoline, nothing else. I didn't say anything, just stood there, staring at the space where my life's work used to be. Linda looked proud of herself. "Honestly, I didn't think I'd get that much," she went on, fanning herself with the money. "But this young guy came by, offered cash on the spot. No haggling. Can you believe it? You sold my Chevelle?" My voice came out too quiet. "Well, yeah." She tilted her head like I was the weird one. "It was just taking up space, Frank. You hadn't driven it in years. I figured I was doing you a favor." I stepped into the garage just to make sure this wasn't some horrible misunderstanding. It wasn't. The custom spoiler? Gone. The black leather bucket seats I reupholstered by hand? Gone. The LS6 engine I pulled from a wrecked Corvette and rebuilt over 2 summers with parts I had to beg, borrow, and hunt for online? Gone. "Who told you to do that?" I asked, teeth clenched. Linda blinked. "What? Who gave you permission to sell my car?" She laughed. "Frank, come on. It's not like you were using it. You've got responsibilities now. You've got a lawn that looks like a jungle and a garage full of clutter. I figured I'd help you clear it out." She really thought she'd done something helpful. That was the worst part. I stared at the empty space, heart thudding, mind spinning. 5 years of weekends, thousands of hours, 100 grand in parts alone, all of it gone, just like that. She didn't just sell a car, she stole my damn life. Linda sat on the patio that evening like she hadn't just nuked my entire world. Glass of Chardonnay in hand, talking to my wife, Annie, like everything was fine. I walked past them without a word and went straight into the house. I needed to sit down, breathe, process. Instead, I found the receipt on the kitchen counter. It wasn't even a real receipt, just a piece of lined notebook paper, the kind from a dollar store spiral. In sloppy blue ink, it read, "71 Chevy SS sold for $3,200 cash, paid in full." No last name, no ID, just a phone number scribbled underneath and a smiley face. A goddamn smiley face. I stared at it, trying to make sense of what I was looking at. That car, my car, wasn't some rust bucket. It was a legit LS6 with matching numbers. One of maybe a few dozen still out there in anything close to original condition. I'd run the VIN through the registry myself when I bought it off a guy in Arizona who had no idea what he was sitting on. It had sat untouched since the late 80s, and it took me 5 years. 5 years of grinding, welding, sourcing period-correct parts from swap meets and junkyards to get it road-ready again. And now, poof, gone, for a fraction of what it was worth. I walked back outside, holding the paper. "Linda," I said, my voice low. She smiled like I just brought her a cookie. "Yes, sweetie," I held up the paper. "What is this?" "Oh," she said with a little laugh. "The guy didn't have a printer or anything, but I figured a handwritten receipt would be fine. He seemed trustworthy, very sweet. Said his uncle used to have one of those cars." I blinked. "Did you ask for his license? A full name? Anything?" "Well, no," she said, blinking. "Why would I?" I had to grip the patio railing just to keep from exploding. "And the tools?" I asked. "What?" "The snap-on chest, the boxes, the bench with the Miller welder, the vintage torque wrenches, my dad's timing light, the stuff by the back wall. Where is it?" "Oh, I told him he could take whatever was cluttering the space," she said, sipping her wine. "I mean, those old tools were just gathering dust, Frank. Honestly, it's better this way. It's time to grow up and focus on real man stuff, like fixing up that lawn." I walked back inside before I said something that landed me in jail. That night, after Annie went to bed, I made a call. One I hadn't made in years. "Blake," I said when he picked up. "Frank? Wow, haven't heard from you in forever. You okay?" "No," I said. "I need your help. Someone sold my Chevelle without permission." There was a pause. Then, "You're kidding." "I wish I was." "Wait, is this the LS6 car? The one you were restoring back in high school? That's the one." He whistled. "Damn, that thing's got to be worth close to 200 grand by now, maybe more if the numbers match." "They do." Another pause. "Who sold it?" "My mother-in-law." "Jesus. I've got a phone number, no name, no legit receipt, nothing." He was quiet for a second. "All right," he said finally. "Send me everything. I'll start a report. Might be able to track the ad if she posted it online. Craigslist leaves digital footprints." "Thanks," I said, voice hoarse. "And Frank?" "Yeah?" "You're going to need to tell her. This might end up as a felony." I hung up and stared at the wall for a long time. She had no idea what she'd done. No clue she'd just handed a priceless collector car to some random flipper. And now, it was probably already gone. Loaded on a trailer and halfway across the country by now. I looked down at my hands. They were shaking. She didn't just sell a car. She buried 30 years of family history and didn't even ask first. The next evening, I got a text from Mark, Annie's brother, Linda's golden child. "Mom told me about the car, probably for the best. Maybe now we can finally clean up the garage." I stared at the screen so long my coffee went cold. Not a word asking if I was okay. Not even a question. Just a pat on the head, like I'd finally been relieved of a burden I never asked to let go of. I typed out a response, deleted it. Typed another. Deleted that too. An hour later, Mark pulled into the driveway, just back from some fishing trip up near Big Bear. I heard him cracking open a beer before he even came through the front door. "Hey, man," he said like nothing was wrong. He flopped down on the couch, kicked his muddy boots off right onto the rug. "Saw your message. Sorry about the car or whatever. Honestly, though, it's just an old Chevelle, right?" I leaned against the wall, arms crossed. It was a 71 SS, LS6, matching numbers. He looked up from his phone, one eyebrow raised. "Okay, and?" "It was worth over $200,000. Silence. He blinked, like maybe he thought he misheard me. "What?" I didn't say anything, just watched him absorb it. "Wait, are you serious?" I nodded once. His mouth opened, then closed, then opened again. "Jesus, are you kidding me? Mom said it was like a fixer-upper, junker from the backyard." "It wasn't. She said you barely touched it." I rebuilt the entire drivetrain by hand. Mark sat up straighter, the beer suddenly forgotten. "Okay, wait, are we talking actual 200 grand? Like, real money? Not just collector fantasy crap?" It was listed in the National Registry. VIN matched, only 34 of that model left in the country. He ran a hand through his hair. "Holy shit." "Yeah, she sold that? She gave it away, along with my tools, stuff that belonged to Dad and Grandpa." He swore under his breath. "Oh, man. Yeah." Mark stood, pacing now. "Okay, this might be bad, like legally bad. You didn't give her permission, right?" "Not even close." He paused, rubbing his jaw. "This is grand theft, Frank." "I know. I mean, I joked about clearing out space for a treadmill, but I thought it was just some beat-up car, man. I didn't know she was offloading a collector's item." I sat down across from him, tired. "She posted it on Craigslist. No price research, no ID, no bill of sale, just took cash from some guy and called it a favor." Mark sat in stunned silence. Finally, he asked, "What are you going to do?" "I've already called Blake. He's starting a case file, said we might be able to track the sale chain." Mark let out a low whistle. "You think you'll get it back?" "Maybe. But even if I do, damage is done." He nodded slowly, eyes distant. Then he said something I didn't expect. "You think she knew?" "Knew what?" "That it was worth that much, that it mattered." I stared at him. "Does it matter if she did? She didn't ask, she didn't even call. Just walked into my garage and treated my life's work like a pile of junk." He looked away. For a moment, neither of us spoke. Then he said quietly, "If it were my car, I'd press charges." I didn't answer. I didn't have to. Because for the first time in years, Mark finally understood. He'd always laughed at my hobby, called it my midlife crisis in slow motion, said I spent too much time chasing dead horsepower. But now he saw what it really was. It wasn't just a car. It was everything. And Linda had thrown it away like a stack of old magazines. Blake called me the next morning, right as I was walking out the door for work. I almost didn't answer. I hadn't slept much, just stared at the ceiling most of the night, thinking about all the time I spent in that garage, turning bolts, cutting panels, tuning the engine by hand. "Frank," Blake said, his voice sharp. "We found it." I stopped cold on the front porch. "Found what?" "The Chevelle. It turned up in Houston." My heart skipped. "You're sure?" "Same VIN, same red paint with black racing stripes, same aftermarket side exhaust, and rally wheels. The collector who bought it brought it in for appraisal at a specialty shop. Guy flagged it as suspicious because of the unusually low sale price and the lack of original paperwork." "Holy hell," I muttered, gripping the porch railing. "That shop pulled the registry info, saw it was reported by you, called it in this morning." I didn't even know what to say. I felt like someone had punched the air out of me, but in a good way. Blake kept going. "Collector's name is Clay Barons, older guy, legit, runs a clean collection. When I called, he was pissed." "At me?" "No, at the guy who sold it to him. Said if he'd known it was stolen, he wouldn't have touched it." My knees went a little weak, so I sat down on the steps. "Can we get it back?" "Looks like it. We've got a clear chain of possession, from Linda's Craigslist ad, to the guy who bought it, to the dealer in San Antonio, then to Clay in Houston. Clay's cooperating fully. Already sent over bill of sale copies, pictures, everything." "Jesus." I rubbed my eyes. "It's really not gone." "Not yet. You'll probably have to sign some affidavits, maybe appear in court if this goes the distance, but yeah, it's recoverable." I sat there in silence, stunned. Blake added, "Frank, I've seen a lot of stuff, people stealing cars, running scams, but this is a first. Selling a six-figure vehicle without the owner's consent and thinking it was okay?" "She thought she was helping," I muttered. "Helping," he echoed, deadpan, "by committing felony theft." I exhaled hard. "Did Clay say how much he paid?" $120,000. Through a dealer. Legit title, or what looked like it." My jaw clenched. "That guy flipped it the same day, didn't he?" "Looks that way. Bought it from Linda for pennies, then took it to a known classic dealer in Texas. No wait time, no cleanup. Just pure profit." I stood up, the adrenaline kicking in. "Okay, what do we do now?" "I'll file the report and notify the DA. Clay's willing to hand over the car once we get the legal motion filed. With his cooperation, we can argue you never relinquished ownership, which you didn't, and that it was obtained through fraudulent sale." "Blake? Yeah? You're a damn miracle worker." He chuckled. "Don't thank me yet. We still have to tell Linda what's coming." I looked out at the quiet street, the sun just starting to burn through the haze. She thought it was gone for good. Thought she'd cleaned up the garage, but it wasn't gone. Not yet. I called a sit-down for that evening. Kitchen table, no distractions, just me, Annie, and Linda, with Mark hovering by the doorway like he wasn't sure if he wanted to be part of it or not. Linda walked in like she was expecting cake and applause, still wearing her world's best grandma sweatshirt like it gave her some kind of moral immunity. She took her seat at the table, grinning. "I'm guessing this is about the car. Look, I know you were upset." I cut her off by laying down the stack of photos I'd printed earlier that day. She blinked at them. One by one, I slid them across the table. "That's me in '97, I said, pointing at the first one. 14 years old, holding my dad's torque wrench while he taught me how to gap spark plugs." Another photo. "This was when we rebuilt the Chevelle suspension together. He let me do the sway bar bushings." Next photo. "Here's the engine bay after I finished hand polishing the intake manifold. Took me 10 hours and my entire weekend." And then the one that made her face finally change. The last shot I'd taken before she sold it. The car sitting in the garage, waxed and gleaming under a tarp I'd peeled back halfway. You could see the pride in my face, even through the smudge on the lens. Linda's smile faltered. "Frank, I didn't know it meant that much." "It was worth over $200,000, I said flatly. Her mouth opened. Nothing came out. Matching numbers, original LS6, registered in the National Collectors Database. It was already flipped to a dealer for $120 before it landed in the hands of a collector in Houston. Annie sucked in a breath beside me. Mark just muttered, "Jesus Christ." Linda looked pale now. "That can't be right. The guy I sold it to didn't seem like..." "You didn't ask for ID, didn't check anything. You just handed off the keys and took some cash like it was a Craigslist lawnmower." She swallowed hard. "But I didn't know." "You didn't care," I said. You walked into my garage and made a decision that wasn't yours to make. You threw away my tools. You gave away something that belonged not just to me, but to my father and my grandfather. Linda pressed her lips together, defensive now. I was just trying to help. You never used that space. It looked like clutter. No, I said, keeping my voice steady. You wanted to control it, just like everything else, and this time you committed a felony to do it. That got her. She sat back. Excuse me? The DA is reviewing the report Blake filed this morning. You sold property that wasn't yours, with no legal title or authorization. The car's chain of custody is documented, and the buyer's already cooperating. Linda turned to Annie like she expected backup, but my wife stayed quiet. She hadn't said a word since I started. Just sat there, eyes locked on the photos like they told a story she'd never taken time to hear. Linda's voice cracked. You'd really press charges? Against me? After everything I've done for this family? Everything you've done? I repeated. You think this is about revenge? This is about accountability. You broke the law, Linda. You cost me years of work. You treated my passion like trash. She didn't respond, just sat there, hands trembling slightly, as reality finally started to sink in. For once, she didn't have the last word. I did. The next day, Mark pulled me aside while we were cleaning up the patio. He kept glancing toward the house like he didn't want Linda to overhear. Look, he said, rubbing the back of his neck, I don't think she really understood what she was doing. She sold a car that wasn't hers, I said, and gave away family heirlooms like they were junk. What part of that needs explaining? He sighed. She's not a criminal, Frank. She's just impulsive, controlling. She's lucky the buyer turned out to be honest, I said. If that collector had stripped the VIN or shipped the car overseas, we'd never see it again. Mark didn't say anything for a second. Then he looked at me. So what happens now? Are you really going to let her take a felony charge? I didn't answer. Later that night, Annie and I sat in silence at the kitchen table, the kind of silence that had weight to it. She finally spoke. Mark said you're going forward with charges. I filed the report, I said. It's up to the DA now. She nodded, but her eyes were hard to read. I pushed the folder of documents toward her. Copies of the Craigslist ad, the blurry photo from Linda's phone, the bogus receipt, the appraisal reports. I want you to see what she actually did. Not what she says she did, what it really cost. Annie looked at it, then looked at me. She didn't mean to hurt you. But she did. Her voice stayed quiet. You don't have to burn everything down over this. I leaned back, arms crossed. You think I'm overreacting? I think you're hurt, and I get it. But this is my mom. And that car was my dad, I said. It was my childhood, my weekends, my family's history in engine blocks and oil-stained gloves. And your mom handed it to a stranger like it was garbage. Annie looked away. Tell me something. I said, when was the last time you told her no? She didn't answer. That's what this is about, isn't it? Not just the car. She's always run the show, always made the decisions, and you and Mark, you just let her. She's our mom. I'm your husband. She blinked. And this marriage, I said, has never really felt like ours. Not with her here every weekend, not with her making decisions in our garage, not when she doesn't knock before walking into our house. Annie stared down at the table. What are you saying? I'm saying I've spent 10 years trying to earn respect from a family that doesn't value me. And I'm tired. We went to therapy the next week. 3 sessions in, it became clear. She wasn't just struggling with the situation. She didn't even understand it. I just don't see why this matters so much, Annie told the therapist. It was a car. And right there, I knew. It wasn't about the Chevelle. Not really. It was about the fact that she never saw me. You always wanted a wife who decorates, I told her quietly, not someone who rebuilds engines. There was nothing angry in my voice, just the truth. By the end of the month, we agreed to split. No screaming, no lawyers. Just an understanding that whatever held us together wasn't strong enough to survive this. She got the house, I got the garage, and peace. For the first time in years, it felt like the engine inside me was finally quiet. Blake didn't waste time. Within 2 weeks, the DA's office had enough to move forward. The flipper, the guy who scooped up the Chevelle from Linda's garage for $3,200, folded almost instantly. He didn't want jail time, and Blake said the moment they showed him the Craigslist screenshots and the VIN match report, he started talking. He'd flipped the car the same day, drove it from California to a dealer in San Antonio, where he sold it for 90 grand. That dealer then passed it on to the Houston collector, who paid 120 and filed all the paperwork properly. Blake handled it like a pro. The dealer in San Antonio cooperated fully once he realized he'd been part of a fraud chain. The collector? Even better. He was furious that someone tried to pass off a stolen car, but relieved when he found out I wasn't coming after him. We worked out a formal statement of ownership transfer. Once Blake secured the chain of custody documents and verified my claim, the DA sent a recovery order. The Chevelle came back, still gleaming, still immaculate, even better than I remembered. Clay, the collector, had done a full detailing before it left his care. Paint correction, wax job, even reinstalled a set of vintage tags I'd mentioned in passing to Blake. I think he wanted to make it right. When the trailer pulled into my driveway, I felt something weird. Not joy, not closure, just quiet. I stood there while the driver rolled it off the ramp, engine off, shining in the late afternoon sun. He handed me the keys. I nodded, said thanks. He drove away, and I just stood there looking at it. The car I spent 5 years building. The car my dad and I had dreamed about since I was a kid. The car that somehow became the center of a storm I never saw coming. But it didn't feel like mine anymore. Too much had happened. Too many hands had touched it. Too many people had treated it like a bargaining chip. That night, I made a decision. 2 weeks later, the Chevelle went up for auction, listed through a specialty collector's platform with full provenance, restoration photos, and a certified appraisal. The bid started strong. By the third day, it broke $150. By the end of the week, it sold for $215,000. Cash. Clean. Legal. Linda, meanwhile, didn't get jail time. The DA offered a plea deal, 5 years probation, felony theft on her record, and monthly restitution payments. She tried to fight it at first, but her public defender told her flat out, "You're lucky. This could have been prison." I didn't attend the court date. Didn't need to. Blake sent me the paperwork. It was done, the car came home, then it left again, on my terms this time. And with the money, I paid off the rest of the divorce costs, closed out some debts, and set aside a chunk for something new. Something different, something that didn't carry the weight of betrayal. Linda never apologized, never even tried. That was fine, because this time I wasn't chasing closure. I was starting over. Clean, legal, and finally, free. The Chevelle was gone. The auction money sat in a new bank account, untouched. I kept thinking I'd feel something when it sold. Regret, maybe, or pride. But mostly, I just felt like I could breathe again. 2 months later, I found myself back at the edge of a weed-choked lot just outside of a Dillwild. Old place with sagging barns and a rusted-out sign that said, "Cars and Stuff." The kind of place where metal goes to die, or maybe to get reborn. That's where I saw her. A 70 Plymouth Roadrunner B5 blue, under the grime, pushed halfway into a crooked shed, 3 flat tires, windows busted. She was a mess. I couldn't stop staring. My dad had one. Not this exact model. His was more beat up, less flash, but this was close. Closer than I'd ever gotten to that memory in decades. The guy who owned the yard was in his 70s, maybe older, wearing a sun-bleached Got Mopar hat and smoking a cigarette like it was keeping him alive. "How much?" I asked, nodding at the car. He looked at me, squinted. "You gonna part it?" "No, I'm gonna build it." He grinned. $2 grand and you tow it. Done. That was 6 weeks ago. Now, the Roadrunner sits in my new garage, smaller than the last, maybe, but this one's mine and mine alone. No Linda, no judging glances, no one calling it clutter, just concrete fluorescent lights and the sound of a socket wrench clicking into place. Weekends are mine again. Quiet, peaceful, wrenching without apology. No more explaining myself. No more justifying how I spend my time. The neighbors swing by sometimes, curious, polite, ask questions about the engine, the rust, the history. I don't mind. I like talking about cars with people who actually care. Sometimes I'll put on old music and just sit there for hours, sketching out what I'll do next. Frame repairs, engine swap, interior work. No rush. I'm building this one slow. Not to impress anyone. Not for auction. Not for closure. Just for me. Because for the first time in years, I'm not fixing something that someone else broke. I'm creating something new. And it feels good. It feels like mine.